Hi, good afternoon. I'm Chaitan from the San Diego Supercomputer Center, which is at the University of California in San Diego. And I'm a database researcher there. I've been there for the last 15 years or so. And 15 years ago, it certainly did make sense for a database person to be at a supercomputer center, and now it makes even more sense, as you've been hearing all through today. What I'm going to talk about today actually is a community activity that got started a few months ago. The discussions for this happened probably 6 to 8 months ago. And it's related to the whole notion of how do we come up with some kind of objective metrics for the broad range of big data applications. Immediately brings up the question of what is big data, and that's one of the things to be tackled here. But in that range of applications, how does one come up with, or at least try to come up with some sort of objective benchmarks so that we can compare systems with each other, whether at the hardware level, at the software level, or even at the level of how different applications or the same application is implemented in different systems. Okay. So the objectives of this community activity were to try and lay the groundwork for development of industry standards. So actually, there is a motivation here to try and come up with standards for measuring the effectiveness of, as I said, hardware, software systems, and to do it in a way that we learn from previous experiences and what's going on right now, so exploiting synergies between benchmarking efforts. And at this stage, really to provide a forum where we can have open discussions and debates and so on. And I'll describe to you how we're trying to structure that. So the whole thing sort of got kicked off when some of us got this idea of trying to do a workshop on this topic. And it actually turned out to be quite a successful activity. And it was clear that the group that was there, and there are several in the audience here who attended that workshop, was quite energized. It was 2 days of very active discussions. We stole ideas from Jacek, and we actually used lightning talks. We had 45 lightning talks in the workshop. So that was back in May. It was funded by NSF and a bunch of industry sponsors. As I say, well, there was 35 lightning talks, 6 sort of keynote talks. There were 60 attendees. And there's a report that came out of that workshop that got reported at the recent VLDB in the TPC technical committee meeting. Oh, I didn't realize this was animated, so let's go. OK, so the kind of topics that were discussed broadly in those 2 days were what would be an audience for this kind of benchmark? Is it the technical people? Is it the marketing folks? Is it the users? What kind of applications should we model, which immediately gives rise to this notion of data genre? What are the different kinds of genres for big data? And how does one come up with different benchmarks for each of those genres? Is it possible to come up with, in a sense, a single specification that captures all the variety of things that are there in big data? Is it possible to do something that's a component-based benchmark, where you can define very specifically, maybe for different genres or different kinds of processes in a workflow, steps in a benchmark, and you essentially sort of plug in these steps to get an end-to-end application benchmark? Should this be a paper and pencil exercise versus an implementation-based exercise? So should we just do a design on paper and get people to build benchmarks around that, or should there be implementations already out there that everyone then takes those and runs those implementations? And then the question of what can we reuse from all of the work that's going on now, whether that's from TBC or TerraSort or other things. Oh, and finally, where does the data come from? Do we use real data or sort of abstractions of real data? Do we do synthetic data? Do we do data generation? So that's a broad range of topics that was discussed. There's one more, which I forgot. Are the benchmarks for innovation or competition? So are these meant to be sort of just technical benchmarks, micro benchmarks, things like that, which are just for engineering kinds of purposes? Or should these really be benchmarks that can be used to judge the effectiveness of a product? All right, so I think that energized enough of the group of folks that we now have a couple of follow-on workshops coming up. There's a second workshop in December in Pune in India, hosted by Persistent Systems. The first one was in San Jose, hosted by Brocade. And come to the poster, there's all this detail out there. You can see I'm running out of time. Basically, what we wanted to mention in this presentation is, so there's a group of folks on this, essentially a mailing list of participants. And what we do is to run these phone conference meetings every 2 weeks. So that's the real takeaway from this. So if you're interested in joining that list, and we solicit speakers, anyone is welcome to provide topics and give brief talks. This happens every 2 Thursdays. And again, if you came to the poster, you'll see all the details. And thank you. Milind Bhandarkar and Tilman Rabel, who are in the sort of coordinating group, are at this meeting, and we can all meet you at the poster. Thanks.